would like to share a quick Q&A with you via Mentimeter. And if you could quickly scan with your smartphone this code. It's anonymous, then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as preparation for my presentation. Would help me to get some more insights from your end. So if you could do that, that would be great. Thank you very much. Note that this will be recorded. It's also anonymously, and we will put it on YouTube later, which is interesting, perhaps for sharing with colleagues. So if you quickly could use your smartphone and scan with the QR code this. We are with little more than 16, so 69 of you. I'll give you a little bit time to scan, or go to a browser and go to menti.com and type in 77533150. That's the link number on the top. Is it working? Yeah, is it working? Let's see if it's really working. You can still join. Still can join via scanning. So just a quick test for you guys to see how Mentimeter works. You probably know how it works. You can just pinpoint where you are now. And I guess we have a quite international audience. Should be everywhere. But most of you would be somewhere in Europe, I guess. So anytime if you joined later, anytime you want to join this Mentimeter, just go to menti.com and type in 77533150, which is on the top. Well, it seemed to be working quite well. Great. I don't believe that somebody is on small by then. Good. Well, first of all, many of you are ProductIP users. Very welcome to you as a ProductIP user. Also a warm welcome to if you're not yet a ProductIP user, but we are organizing this for people that are working on product compliance in general, but most of the ProductIP users, of course, will get invites because they have registered at our platform already. Welcome to the non-ProductIP users as well. So, as with any other aspect in product compliance, the impact depends largely on what your supply chain role is, and many of you are in various roles. You could also be in TIC, as some of you are, but most of you probably would be an importer in the EU, maybe also actually a factory in the EU, probably also a brand owner, which makes you a quasi-factory. Some of you are, okay, so service provider, good. You know the difference between a fulfillment service provider and online platform, right? Because a fulfillment service provider is somebody that has a big warehouse with products in it that he doesn't own, and they are dealing with logistics for others, but they do also have a responsibility. All right, lovely, great, thanks. Very diverse. It's a slider. I hope that this one works, but do you think you are Digital Product Passport ready? Not ready, or we are ready? I hope this slider works. Not sure if you could put your slider somewhere on the line and go from left to right if it works. Maybe it doesn't work, but I can ask you the question as well, because if I say Digital Product Passport, what would you say? So you can type in anything, and I will see that as an image during my keynote. Okay, so you can just continue to type also during my presentation, and you still can. I can still read this. What are there? Not ready. Yeah. Who is these days? Can we use ProductIP as a direct feed link to the DPP? Yeah. Is there a link to DPP? Okay. Let me share. So I'll continue to have a look at the DPP questions, but let me start with the sharing of my presentation. The DPP, the Digital Product Passport, is coming. Welcome to this Compliance Tuesday session. My name is Casper ter Horst. I'm one of the founders of ProductIP, and ProductIP is a SaaS, a software as a service solution, web-based, and we offer professional support in the implementation and execution of product and supply chain compliance. You can no longer see product and supply chain compliance separately, because many of supply chain aspects are actually more and more integral related with product compliance legislation. Our scope: non-food consumer products. The main regions for which the platform detailed requirement list is produced is for EU and UK market, EU EA market. Having said that, there are various options to use ProductIP for other regions as well. We are independent. We are not a laboratory. We are not an NGO. We are not a regulatory body or a sourcing platform. You cannot find ProductIP products or ProductIP certified products. There's not such thing as that. But there are companies that know how to use ProductIP. Founded in 2007, live since 2009, and in the meantime, we are with a team of 60 people and around 28,000 users worldwide, located in Holland, Augsburg, Hamburg, London, Hong Kong, and Shenzhen. Maybe you didn't know, but the IP stands for Information Platform and IP Address. That's me. You can look me up on LinkedIn later. I'm one of the two founders. Maarten van der Dussen is the other one. And actually, most of our management team is with the company almost since day one. Where did you see this logo before? Well, you might have seen it on clothing or helmet of Olympic athlete, Dutch skeleton athlete Kimberly Bos, second of the world by just a hundredth of a second last year. So probably improved this year. Compliance Tuesday sessions, we do that I think for 12 years already. And we do that because we would like to increase the general understanding of problems around product compliance in the market. If you understand better what is going to face you, you'll be better prepared, and you probably ask us less questions and or appreciate the way we are solving things or not yet solve things, because sometimes they are not clear. We are looking ahead with Compliance Tuesday sessions, but we're sometimes also looking into more depth to create a little bit more, how to say that, knowledge support on certain topics. One of the main problem is and we is not me or you, but we in general, is that we don't understand the problem. There's a lot of new lingo, new words introduced in product compliance legislation, and it's very layered. So you might run into issues that you find not only on one legislation, but in various, and the DPP is such a thing. The last few sessions, we always started with looking at what we call the tsunami from Station Brussels, and the European Commission actually used the station as an explanation of how they develop legislation. There are 6 platforms, and we call it the tsunami because on those 6 platforms, European Green Deal up to a new push for European democracy, there's a total of 580 plus pieces of legislation, and that's why we call it a tsunami, because it's incredible amount. Are they all relevant for product compliance or companies that deal with product compliance in the non-food sector? Well, first of all, you have to read them all in order to understand if they or not impact you. And some you might read and think, okay, from the title, this is not relevant for me. Why should I be worried about carbon footprint offset, something like that? Until you start to import products that actually in kilos are a tremendous amount of steel, and then you import steel from outside the EU, but inside the European Union, there's actually a kind of a financial payment you need to make if you produce steel as a carbon footprint offset. And now when you import them, you need to pay them as duties. So sometimes you'd be surprised which legislation actually affect you. 584 active legal trains. I cannot dive into one specific platform and or one specific train because the digital product passport is actually everywhere. So that makes it quite complex, which you will see. There are some general there's some general reasoning behind the digital product passport. It is intended to empower consumers to make the right choices, you and me. Well, we want to spend some money on a product. We have numerous options in the market. Some are very expensive, some are a little bit cheaper. But cheap can be cheerful, but it can also not be cheerful. And the same goes for expensive, could not be cheerful. So in order to make the right choices, we need to have information. We also want to reduce the number of paper-based information around products, especially around packaging, packaging recycling, and manuals. So there's a trend to have information available for consumers digitally, which makes sense. You know, if we want to lower the footprint of, for example, packaging and packaging materials, then why we would demand large paper manuals. We also, society in general, would like to ensure that the products we buy are compliant and come from a compliant manufacturing supply chain. And the reality is that we all have not been taking this very serious. And not you, of course, always the others, but we as consumers are driving a price discussion, and we are loving to buy something cheap from internet. But on the same time, if these products actually are not safe, or have not a really sustainable lifetime, damage after 2 or 3 months already, then cheap isn't cheerful. So European Union has set goals internationally, which I will highlight a little bit later. And in order to meet those goals, especially on sustainability, we need to become more serious about compliance. And that means that we want to have different systems in place. And one of the systems is digital product passport. And it wants to ensure that compliance is built in upfront before you ship it. Basically shutting the door for companies that think, okay, I can repair the formality of compliance when asked after I put products on the market. That is what sometimes happens. We don't have a declaration of conformity. We'll just make one in case somebody is asking for it. Okay, that was one way, but with the DPP, it's the digital product passport, the DPP. That door will be closed. Transparency built in. So if this is not your business model, transparency built in, then you better start selling your company quickly, because look at what's happening in apparel, textiles, apparel. Where it needs to be clear from where's the cotton coming from, where was it made into fabric, and where was the fabric dyed, and where is the actually apparel being sewn together. And that information needs to be clear to consumers in the future. So if your business model is based because you think only you know where products are bought, then your business model probably is gone. So it is all about availability, about ensuring that the promises, and that's what we say in our tagline, a world in which products can be trusted, that promises actually are clear and kept. It all trickles down or trickles up from 17 UN chapters that most of the Western companies agreed on in 2015. And I think that, and I can be pretty sure, I'll bet you money on it, that every one of us, if you read those 17 chapters, you won't disagree. You're not against modern slavery. You have an opinion about child labor, and these things do matter. And the whole idea is that companies need to set their own goals and start to work on it and report about progress. And some of these goals actually are connected with products. So in Europe, this translated into the European Green Deal in 2019. I'm not going to all the details, you will get the slides anyway. But our ambitions is a climate neutral continent in 2050, 55% less net greenhouse gases compared to 1990. So that is not compared to today. We need not just reduce what we have, but we need to go back to what we did in 1990 and then go half. That's amazing. Very concrete goal. plant another 3 billion trees. So there's many in there. You have URLs to information, and you can have a reading session yourself. I want to show you this because I want you to make clear one thing. This is not going away. Let that sink in. This is not something that you can sit out and think they will change their mind. They won't. They have made commitments and they are going to reach those commitments. Another related one is Circular Economy Action Plan 2020. Sustainable products should become the norm in the EU. And empower consumers and public buyers means that if you are not participating in this modern world, you probably, or your products cannot end up at public offices. So this means that municipalities will not buy your furniture. That's very simple. They focus on product categories that use resources first, and actually also use first, because you and I like to buy something new at the moment it's launched, and therefore electronics, computers are there, batteries and vehicles are there, because we are transitioning to a electrical powered society. That means if we skip batteries and vehicles today, we lose great opportunity to already arrange things for products that are growing as a segment at whole. Packaging is very relevant. Every product has packaging, and you write it down. I'll come to that slide later, why packaging is so important for you. Plastics, textiles, constructions and buildings. Why is that on this list? Well, very simple. Construction and buildings last very long. And if you don't start to make arrangements today about what happens when we demolish our buildings in 20 or 30 years, we have an incredible time gap that we have not taken care of. So we need to start thinking about construction and buildings. Of course, food, water, and nutrition are there, but not so relevant for you today. Basic principles: reduce waste, ensure circularity, right? Reuse of materials. And we want to be leaders in Europe. So if you say, yeah, but we in Europe always want to be first. Well, yeah, we want to be first. 2022, very recently, Sustainable Product Initiative. That was actually one of the first initiatives where Digital Product Passport was mentioned as a tool to ensure these kind of things. And the reasoning and logic behind that is that a linear economy where we just purchase products and then products become waste actually skip the information parts to consumers. Consumers are not so really relevant. Their information is really relevant in the decision-making process. But if you have a circular economy, the information flows actually to the next level, and at the end, when the product becomes waste, needs to be there as well. So it is the same information in principle, or the information is there, but it's not shared in a linear one. But in a circular economy, you need actually to share more information about the product, where it was made, how it was made, which substances were in there. Because if you know what has been used, then you can also make conscious decisions about changing things. But this is, of course, about change. This is not about reporting in a new way what we are doing today. No, what we're doing today is not okay. And that means we need to change. And whilst we change, we need to be able to monitor change. In a circular way, there are different entities, repairers, waste management, raw material producers, authorities as well, all have information to contribute to and or read from a digital product passport. So the digital product passport is the information hub, so to say. Yeah. What, where, when, how? Good question. Well, batteries, consumer electronics, textiles, footwear. It is mentioned in the new drafts on toys. It's definitely mentioned in packaging materials, papers and plastic, which is still in draft. Construction products and buildings, furniture, because that's also a massive impact in terms of resources, mattresses specifically. Tires, maybe not on your scope, but detergent, paints, lubricants, and all kind of building materials. Ultimately, all products. So this is something, as a concept, it's there, and as a concept, it will be maturing, and it will have more different kind of layers of information when it's developing, and those layers of information depends on products. For example, you can have a piece of electronics where you have information about the electronics, and then suddenly you have the same product with a battery. Then you have battery information slide as well on that digital product passport. The passport has multiple pages. I told you a few slides before, packaging materials, because you can look at different scopes, but if the packaging materials, packaging and waste legislation is under draft for updates now, but in that one, it's mentioned that all packaging, also for feed and food, will have to have a declaration of conformity, not a CE declaration of conformity, but a declaration of conformity. And it has to have recycle instructions for the consumer in various languages. Okay, but that means all products, because all products have packaging or a packaging element in a certain way. That means that probably will be the leader of the whole initiative. And still, if they write down there will be 24 months or 36 months before you need to change some things, sure, that has to do with the fact that you already have products in warehouses and you already have things in order. But most of you are ordering products 6, 9, 12 months ahead. So that part you can already skip from those 24 to 36 months, and you will need every day. Maybe even not you, but maybe your supplier. Because if you think about having material information on packaging in your digital product passport, you're ordering a product from your supplier, you're ordering it with their packaging that they have. 99% of you are doing that. It's not wrong, but it is very difficult to start to collect information from your product vendor if they not making the packaging themselves. They buy it maybe from me, but I'm actually packaging manufacturer. I'm not buying the plastic or making the plastic and paper myself. I'm buying the paper from a wholesaler, and he is buying the paper from a paper mill. The same for plastics. So if I want to be sure that a large amount of paper and plastics are actually used from recycled materials, how far deep into the supply chain then I need to go in order to have this information? And how much easier would it be if I would not just buy packaging materials that are available from my supplier, but actually treat packaging as a product, which it is, as a product element, and start to define a packaging and material layout, look and feel, material choices like a concept, make technical files for that and maintain that. You could compare it by, I like the way you make your luminaires, I want to buy your luminaires, but I don't want to buy luminaires with the power supply cord and the switch and the plug from your nephew. I have sourced 3 reliable manufacturers of a power supply cord with a plug and a switch, and you need to buy it from these factories, and I want a copy of the invoice. So there you see already the complexity. You probably will not go just to your first tier supplier, but 2, 3, 4 levels deep, or they need to do it. And then you need to, have a different kind of process and information than you have today. Of course, it is already mentioned, digital product passport, eco-design for sustainable products. I put it on top because this is the driver. This is, if you look at legislation and changes legislation, maybe we get an upgrade on the low voltage directive and redefine some supply chain roles and maybe make a reference to a digital product passport, but we will not invent new electrons. So the electrical risk for electrical products probably won't change anymore. But eco-design for sustainable products, that is the massive part of the legislative agenda that is continuously changing. Ditto batteries and waste, because it's a growing market. Ditto packaging and packaging waste, because 50% of the single-use paper and plastics come from packaging and packaging waste. So this is low-hanging fruit in terms of what we want to achieve in Europe. Ditto construction products. Apparel, Yeah, because we wear clothes, then throw them away. And counting. Yeah. So we need to look at different aspects. And one, of course, is data collection. We need to understand what needs to be there. Why is ProductIP then not having answers on that? Because the concept of the digital product passport is ready, and what needs to be there actually now starts to trickle down. So we already are building complete foundation of it on top of what we already have. And that means that will allow us, the moment we know what needs to be there, we use the tools to collect data and match it with what you need to have. And how do we get it? Well, you can send a mail on an Excel sheet and type it again, or better, ensure that your supplier actually is handing it to you in a efficient way. Do I need to have a platform? No, you can go ahead. The retail industries and the other industries made it very clear they want to be able to create digital product passports themselves. So you can have your own system, but you cannot define your own fields. So you cannot say, I use field name XYZ for weight or for size. The fields are mandatory. And more important, information has to be accessible by search engine. Aggregable, what difficult word. Why is that relevant? Because consumers need to be able to make informed choices. It's like with energy labels, you cannot hide energy label information. Yeah, but it's on the packaging. Yeah, but it needs to be on the website as well. And if I start to Google on products, then I need to be able to show which products are having what kind of features, why these are having different prices. Information to be accessible by search engines is quite a challenge if your current level of information is somewhere in a Dropbox on a server behind a firewall in your basement. Available for consumers, yeah, of course. QR code, digital link, but it has to be accessible over time. It's not business to business. It's not, I send you an email, you open it on desktop. No, this is mobile device, user interface, various platforms, which require maintenance, which require capabilities of traffic handling. And if somebody in Italy is scanning your digital code, they want to have information in the Italian language. In fact, some of the information that you need to show actually depends on countries. Not only on product, but also packaging materials used. For example, you need to select somewhere which materials you used, and then there will be per country specific instructions for the consumer how to recycle that packaging materials, in which kind of bin they need to throw it. Okay, and that can vary over time. Yes, possibly even per country, correct? And even the thresholds will vary over time, possibly even per country. Correct. So this is as complex as, as chemical legislation, where there are substances that are hazardous and some are, have a threshold of certain percentage weight on weight per certain dates. So you need to manage information over time, and that makes it quite complex. But it also means that if the instructions vary over time, even for products in the market, then you need to maintain that as well. What does that mean? Well, recycle instructions, for example, for packaging could be, in the Netherlands, papers need to be thrown in bin A. But what if 3 years later, actually they say packaging of paper needs to be thrown in bin A and plastics need to be thrown in bin C? You know already which information or what kind of materials are used in the packaging, but then the instructions over time become more detailed per country. Okay. So you need to log what's in there. Yes, and it needs to be true. And the reaction or the action by consumers in time could change. Yeah, could be changing. Okay, guys. When, what? So the thing is, they have mentioned digital product passport in many legislations, and they have given themselves space and time also to coordinate with key players in the market. And they do that by what they call delegated acts. So a delegated act as part of legislation gives the European Commission the tools and the power to actually fill in basically the table. And that means that from 2025 to 2030, you will see different layers of implementation of digital product passport. Okay, 2025, we are now in September 23. Some of you are now buying for summer 2024. So you have like a few months to start considering what is impact and then start working on that. And first and foremost, it starts with information flow. Do we know where we buy from and who we buy from and what we buy from and what's the quality of information? You need to really start to managing your supply chain. The digital link needs to be on packaging, product, / manual as well, and also accessible on a web page. It could be URL, you know, it doesn't need to be QR code. It's just like information passport. When, what, and how? Well, I told you it's monitoring of adjustments and changings and thresholds. Thresholds is, for example, you can use paper for packaging, but after a certain date, you can only use paper in packaging 30% recycled, and after a certain date, 70% recycled. And those thresholds and dates are now going to be defined. But the fact that paper is paper, that's clear, and that PVC is PVC, that's clear. That doesn't change. The complexity for you is I need to start collecting data. Up to now, you were collecting compliance evidence. And that evidence is at your end, but this is data that you need not only to collect, but also process. And you need to have, you know, also processes to verify that the quality of the data is good. You need to have this process so you know which products are affected from which suppliers, and you can focus on the impact. The main driver of all this is eco-design. So if you want to continue to read something and see what are the developments, then it's this. And this I highlighted specifically because it gives you a clear idea how deep this is going. There will be coming a registry. So yes, you can have digital passports yourself, but there will also come a registry, a European registry. So if people ask us, will there be an interface? Well, I'm not sure if there will be an API one-on-one interface, but there will be clear processes on how to upload information into this ESPR registry. Unique product identifiers, that will be probably GTIN or 2D EN codes to connect to product passport in time. Batches, traceability. Basically, has to do with traceability. What needs to be uploaded? Delegated acts, but you need to declare it basically. This is like with the energy label. You know, you don't generate the energy label yourself. You put in data in a platform, it generates the energy label with a QR code. You declare that the values are correct. Now it's your duty to ensure that next batches produced are the same. So you declare that these informations are true. And this has an interesting link because there's another flow happening, and that is simplifying, combining the data flow at customs. And customs is one of the key players as well when you mention market surveillance. Right? So often when you think about market surveillance, you're thinking about national market surveillance authorities, but customs is one of them. They will have access to this product passport registry, and they will start to validate information that is there or not there. And if it's not there, then there's already no access. That means that they also can easier blacklist, that they also can easier identify high-risk products, etc., etc. First schedule that we know is 2027, 2028, starting with drop shipping from outside. Of course, it's customs from outside the EU to EU customers, B2C. Is this good? Yeah, it's good. I think it's good for fair play. I think everybody should be able to make money on the European market, but it needs to be level playing field. Does this mean that it is not relevant for EU importers. No, it is relevant for everybody. It will start with dropshipping, B2C, business to consumers, and ultimo, it will be also relevant for European manufacturers actually producing products. This is the last one, and then you talk about 2035 and beyond. Yeah, this also helps to ensure that products have an EU address to be contacted when you are shipping. We also need to know from where it's coming. So this involves new entities, logistics service providers, etc., that going to validate this information is there. I bet you nobody in 2027 want to ship your product if this is not correct, because they are absolutely going to check it already before customs will check it. Yeah. No escape in that sense. But this regulation, it goes a little bit deeper than what you are used to today. It will also list substances of very high concern. Substance of concern, it means what kind of substance, name, cost number, an identifier, location, which parts have which substances, made out of what, concentration, not necessarily recipe, but substance of concern, concentration, and in case relevant, instructions for safe use and disassembly of the product. Yeah, but who knows these things? Well, factories know these things. Factories don't end up in the morning at their factory and think, okay, here are some bags of substances that we don't know. Let's see what kind of product we can make from that. This is not how it works. The fact that some of your supply chain partners these days are not able to supply you with this information, you A, have never asked it, B, they never considered it to be relevant to trace it. And they can do it because they just have never considered it to be relevant for you. Substances of very high concern is not new. That part of the REACH legislation, SVHCs, is already there for a long time. If there are parts with a concentration over 0% weight on weight, there is already a reporting duty at SCIP database. So it's not new, but that obligation also now becomes an obligation to be clear in a product passport. So consumers will actually see that your product will have substances of very high concern with a concentration over 0.1%. Now it's up to your brand expectations to see if it's relevant or not. Ditto for substances that are classified as most hazardous. So these are CRM, toxic, not allowed in toys, not allowed in childcare, probably not so smart in food contact materials as well. But if they are CRM toxic and this hazardous, could even be a broader scope than CRM. CRM means substances that give you cancer or influence your reproduction organs, or are mutagene toxic, so they influence your DNA. Maybe the scope of what's called hazardous will be even extended beyond CRM, but this will be then marked in the REACH chemical database. New is number C, substances negatively affect reuse and recycling of materials in the product. Okay, now you understand why not all the information is clear for everybody. Because when you read that, substances that negatively affect reuse and recycling of materials in the product, as a sentence that makes sense, I can understand what's there, but the impact is massively. Would you allow PVC in products or in packaging if you know that PVC actually is not very good recyclable as a material? So substance C is a new category not related to chemical safety or food safety. This starts to force supply chain partners in making well-informed decisions as well, and identify what materials are we actually using. This also relates to materials used, for example, in batteries, and then you will see that the battery and battery waste legislation already identifies substances negatively affect reuse and recycling or have sustainability reasons. And so sometimes there are already thresholds in legislation. But look at this. If this kind of information, this level of detail need to be presented to consumers, don't even think about the marketing impact, but think about the process impact. Where do you get the information from today? From who? How? And where do you store it and share it? And how many people you would like to have involved in your company for that? Probably not too many. Yes, you have a process. Some of you didn't use ProductIP today. We noticed that. It's not a problem. But in most cases, your process is we Google, we keep track in Excel, and we send emails, and we write down post-its, and we drop things in Dropbox, and that's our system. It's not really a process, but because it doesn't track who did what when. Anyway, can have a discussion about process. This is not the process that is written down in legislation. And this process, I can tell you, and you don't need to believe me, but that process will not survive digital product passport. You cannot cope with the massivity of changes and data. It requires a process that starts with product, because you need to understand, based on product, what needs to be there, as well as packaging. So you need to know product and packaging, and you need to know in which countries and when you're going to place it on those markets in order to actually know the scope of information. And then now you know the scope of information, you need to get it efficient from your suppliers and need to share it with customers, B2B, consumers, B2C, and actually authorities, because digital product passport might also have information layers that you need to unlock on the request of authorities. Okay. Yes, you can make it yourself. It's allowed. Flip it around and think, okay, this is a lot of information. What kind of questions should we ask internally? Okay, we need to actually start to understand who are we dealing with, because you often buy from sources that make products directly. You will probably make products from buy products from trading agents, which is fine. They have an important role in the supply chain. But do you know who is behind that? And are they up to speed? And can they be brought up to speed? How efficient is your process today of collecting and processing data? And can you actually provide digital access to data today? Looking at your own IT team and your own or external partner, do you think they want to study 584 pieces of legislation, not only today, but in the next years, and come up with a solution in time, within budget? I don't think so. Your IT team and partners are on the commercial side oriented. I'll be happy surprised when it's different, because they also need to maintain not your current scope, but also be ready when you expand scope. Yeah, and maybe today you don't buy, I don't know, electrical bicycles, but if you want to start buying new product categories, you cannot look at your IT team and say, okay, you need to build digital product passports for these new products as well, or expand it to countries, and so on and so on. So if this is about change in Europe, and you think your business model and the way you deal with it won't change, that is not a match. You cannot solve tomorrow with yesterday. It's sorry to say. So I don't do it often with Compliance Tuesday, but this time I feel it's really opportune to say that this is a process that starts with products linked to countries and time, and that enables, because it's web-based, even to ask your suppliers to start working on it, because they should start doing or getting organized around data, and you need to start managing their performance. We are building this, and when we started reading those new legislations, we thought, okay, this is a couple of many years work for our IT department permanently based on what we know today. To find good people takes time, but we have them and they are working, and they're working on the basis of QR access to product information that ProductIP has been offering since November 2010. This is not a typo, 2010. We have QR access to product information in your technical files since November 2010. We know how to share this kind of data. Summary, digital product passport. Compulsory, mandatory, a must-have to have access. It's actually all about empowering consumers. So I think you need to approach this from a positive note. what if, and then you fill in your brand, what if we make this our brand worthy? How would we want this to look? Yeah. What will happen if we provide 100% transparency? So your brand definitely has kind of statements about what you want to be. So embrace it and start working on it and make decisions. It might be that some products you say bye-bye to, because on the quantities that you sell, you cannot maintain what you would like to maintain. Product compliance has to be built in from shipment. There are, if you look at timber regulations, you need to have certain information before goods are going on board of a ship. So this means that processes sometimes need to be reversed with what you do today. And this means that your timeline of shipments need to be relooked at and restudied at. Again, if you're business smart, smarter than your competition, you have a market. Search engine friendly is definitely a challenge for everybody, for us as well. Multilingual covers all kinds of languages, is also relevant. Act now, time is of the essence. Yes, because 2025 is around the corner as such. We could have a discussion when you are in Hong Kong. We are at the Global Source Consumer Electronics, October 11 to 14th. We are at booth 8F06, Hall 8. Martin is there. I will be there. Alice Poon will be there. So some of our colleagues from the Hong Kong Shenzhen office will be there. Looking forward to meet you if you are there. Stay informed. That's also relevant. And I would like to quickly jump back to the Mentimeter slide. So the main questions that you have: can we use ProductIP as a direct feed link to the DPP? That will then be as a feed to the registry. That makes sense. If there is a registry with an API, it could be dump and upload. No, the fields will be defined, and we won't make up field names. We will follow standards in that sense. European IT system or individual system. So individual systems for DPP are allowed, but there will be a European register. So consumers will not look at the European register. So you are able to maintain branding, and these are things that we are considering as well. How will the ProductIP offering for a digital product passport look? Could be different for pay-as-you-go users and enterprise users, obviously. But so yes, a European IT system, but that's more for the customs and market surveillance part. Compulsory, definitely, and packaging will probably be the first. Distributor obligations. In many of the legislations, it's written that product compliance is relevant for all the supply chain partners. I guess it's similar as today. If you start to sell products that don't have a proper digital product passport, that you definitely have to have an opinion about that. I think if you are brick and mortar retail or online sellers, you will see that the market is moving. However, if you are online sellers, but your online selling tool doesn't have space for digital product passport information, then you will have a problem on that end. Timeline, I mentioned 2025, then transitions per legislation via those specific acts. Pilot, no pilot. Starts. How can it support the sharing of sustainability data on products with customers? No, it will. It will show a minimum. You can always show more, but it will definitely about sustainability data on products with customers. Yeah? Who needs to have access? Customers and government agencies. Yes, again, customers, and then some of the government agencies as customs via the general register. Need to public my DPP to my consumers. That's the whole idea. It's a must. Can it replace paper manuals? It will. Not all. The machine directive, and then we have that a session next week, mentioned that as well. It makes sense, it makes sense to offer video explanations on how to maintain a product rather than just paper. But it doesn't make sense to have video content for a forestry product when somebody is hanging in a tree and wants to have some information. There are certain places where it doesn't make sense. But the whole tendency to have information available digitally, I absolutely agree that that is happening. Okay. Not ready. Interesting. Okay. That's my session for today. I have 3 more slides for you to answer. Little bit hiccup at the beginning with Zoom. Even I started 15 minutes before with the demo version for Zoom. It refused to install. So sorry for a hiccup at the beginning. Could I have your honest response about this Compliance Tuesday session and topic? Just type in, I can handle things, my shoulders are broad. So. You can add your remarks. Scary, yeah, that's a good word. I would probably type scary as well. I think DPP is, it's really, going to change the way many of you are going to do business. But I agree, green. Look at it as opportunity. Not everybody will be able to manage change. That is always the reasoning in business models, right? Okay. Thanks for that. We have been looking at Compliance Tuesdays, and we have some ideas, and I would like to share that with you just to have your opinion. We didn't make a decision on it yet, but would you join Compliance Tuesdays if they weren't free? That's a key question. You can answer no, but you know that spending your own time researching isn't free as well, right? I think it's interesting. I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't join if this wasn't free. But anyway. So for those that would join if they wasn't free, what would you be willing to pay per person if it would be 1 by 1? I won't hold you against it. Okay, that's interesting. Thanks. And what if you would be having access to all the sessions in a year as a company? All right, thanks for the insights. It's not that we made a decision about it, and I'm pretty sure that there will always be free Compliance Tuesday sessions as well, because some of them are generic. But I can also foresee that certain topics like this one require maybe a more in-depth session, like a training, and then I think it's fair that we limit that to people that are willing to share a little bit of our cost on that. All right. Thank you very much on being so upfront, honest with us on this. Stay connected, stay informed. I'll share with you the results of the Mentimeter for your reference, and we'll share the slides. It's been recorded. We'll drop a link to you when it's live on our YouTube channel. We're probably also recording the Dutch and the German sessions later this afternoon, and you can have a look on that. For now, keep calm, stay compliant, have a great lunch. 1 hour pressure cooker session about DPP finished in 1 hour. Thanks very much, and see you soon live somewhere. Bye-bye.